I'm going to walk around a little bit, I think. Thank you for my panel members for saving me some time. And I know I only have a limited amount of time because lunch is next. So let's get started. Basically what I'm going to do is walk through a brief overview of Tembec, just so you know who we are, and that'll build into why we are interested. It'll build into why we're interested in terms of additional biomass, whether it be energy pellets or other complementary businesses. And then I'll come back to some forest biomass development and really the practical use from concept to execution. So Tembec, company created in 1973. It's a company that's still changing, still finding itself. But it's a company built on the use of trees. And a big thing that we're very proud of, we are a world leader in FSC certification with 10 million hectares certified. This is a foundation as I go into everything else. We start from the tree and work our way to the end product. And it's important that we do it, and we do it very well, and that all stakeholders are in agreement that we all do it well together. So in our wood product sector, we do everything from lumber through to hardwood flooring, and of course wood chips biomass are also a big part of that. Our pulp products, we have 8 facilities between Canada and France. We are in hardwood kraft, softwood kraft, all the way through to specialty products, high yield. We have 2 paper sites in Canada that are focused on newsprint, 1 paperboard site that's into packaging goods, and we have 7 sites between Canada, the US, and France that are into the chemical business. All these are important because they all come back to the root here in terms of the tree. And really, in this picture kind of illustrates the typical stream. You know, we saw a few diagrams as we go through the flow. We start with the tree, we go to some primary breakdown, and we go through the system where we do a lot of secondary business. In the case of Temiskaming, we basically have a biorefinery. Yeah, it's a hot, sexy word, but this has been going on since the mill was really incepted in '73. And it all came down to is finding different uses of the products that you use today. So the one piece we're talking a lot about is on the left-hand side of this slide, biomass slash. That's the piece, well, what really hasn't been put to its full potential. But I want to come back to say, really on the finer side of things is we try and do a lot more than our primary product. We do make ethanol at our facility. We do make a series of chemicals that go into other stream products, resins and other. And of course, we have our core products that are used in everyday goods. So why are we interested? Well, again, that word, start with the tree. Value optimization from tree to end user. Biomass for fuel and chemicals. Utilize biomass highest value. And that goes right through, as I just commented on, in terms of the biorefinery model. An interesting piece, though, I'll put in the middle there is, we're actually looking to use some old piles of biomass as part of our use of material. But really, at the end of the day, another piece of why we're interested is that we want to ensure a true economy of scale for the forest. One user can't do it alone. And really, right now, in today's environment, we're at a very low level. Future-wise, we'd like to see many users on the forest so that we all can share and maximize it to its optimal value. So, again, typical value stream, biomass value stream, typical product mix. We're now talking about roadside slash, forest floor, alternative species, utilizing the full forest. We're talking about some new technology as far as drying, making it better to make some new products. One of those is pellets, but also biofuels, whether it go all the way to the extreme of ethanol, as well as specialty chemicals. So really, when we look at this, we look at, you know, we've got on the left-hand side, we start with the tree. We've got a primary business that can have some more complementary businesses. So I'll jump into sort of the operational trial side of the equation, because using the tree in the most economical way is a starting point, but we want to know what's there. You heard a number of our panelists talk about the research into understanding clearly what is at the stand level or on the forest level. So we want to know what potential volume is available, as well as what can we extract based on the current guidelines. As well, from a perspective of cost, can forest biomass be economical alternative to support new product development, whether it be all the way to ethanol, whether it be pellets or pure energy? Well, why spend time and effort? Lots of detail in here, but the key thing, as I just alluded to, it's about volume. Understand what is actually there in terms of residual material, alternative species, what yield will come out of those blocks, projected versus actual. There was a comment about the inventory being 50% off. We've seen that. Really, it comes down to understanding what we're allowed to do within the rule set to get that full extraction. I think the earlier presentation talked about a filter. I think Joe started off with the filter. Really available, here's the filter, and this is the end result. Well, to get to the end result, you really got to test it. And that's essentially what we're trying to work towards today. But you got to actually put it in practice to test it. On top of extracting a volume, we've got to understand what are the challenges. There's different types of ground when you look across the province of Ontario. From where our operations are in northeastern Ontario all the way down to the Huntsville area. And again, really understand if the volume really exists and can it be extracted in a manner that allows development of another business. So, economy of scale. Well, examine what biomass from the forest, is it a competitive option? Could you do it alone? Could you only harvest trees in order to put it into a product stream, either energy or pellets? What level do you need other users? We talked a lot today, and you heard as the earlier presenters about extraction. It's got to be complementary. It's an additional thing to using the forest. But when you don't have a primary business in today's environment of where we are today, a lot of people are struggling. So really, you want to find a way to make all the conditions work together to keep business, the social aspect, the employment base stable. On the other side, in terms of economy of scale, are there opportunities to improve the amount, okay, through diversification, through product diversification, in terms of enhancing more volume coming off particularly stands? Do we change our rules in a way? The third element on why we're spending the time and effort, and you heard it through the other presentations, we really want to understand what the costs are. If you don't understand what the costs are in terms of input material, you can't take advantage of that speculative market if you don't really know what it is. So really what we want to make sure is when we know what the market is on that far end of the picture that I put up, we want to know that we can, or a contractor can, actually execute to be able to have a new business. So what we're working on in terms of our practical trials, you heard about the effort on the Nipissing Forest, which some of you will have the opportunity to tour tomorrow. But we're doing the same thing. So that's basically, we're looking at the mixedwood forest versus the boreal. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment about the boreal and the real experiences that we've completed to date. But the big thing here is know what your costs are, and is there a real opportunity for investment? Is there a business case to invest in a minimum for a contractor, we'll say $1 million to $1.5 million in terms of trying to make a product from the forest floor? So we actually have worked on some trial experience. We put some time and effort into it. This didn't happen. This just hasn't just happened. When we look at it in terms of the work that Tembec has put into development, and in tough times, it's tough to spend the money on it, but it's important to do so for your future. We did a study involved with Ferric back in 2006 on our Gordon Cousin Forest. We heard all about all this volume. So, and when we did hear the speech from Joe talking about the availability, and it came down to us looking at the opportunity from the practical level. So we actually went in the forest with Ferric and went to measure what we thought was there. 2007, well, we said, now we know what's there, we're going to try and take it out and see what it actually costs to extract. So we actually did a partial Ferric study and a partial underutilized species to find out the important thing. What does it take to get it to the usable point? So our test results within 100 kilometers were pretty much right on the theoretical. It was about $30 to $40 a green ton. Now I wish I could express it in megawatts, but I don't know exactly that conversion. But essentially that's where that material is going. it is supporting a cogen facility in Kapuskasing. Beyond that, we are still continuing on through 2008, 2009. We actually are extracting material, okay? It became more of the business case as sawmills continue to decline, less residual material actually existed, but we want to make sure that what the practical growth experience will be to say there's more material available in the future. Does it support the economical picture into a new product? The latest one in 2009, we are coming to the mixedwood forest. Very much a change, a better operating season, but has a whole series of other challenges in terms of the way that we actually have to do the activities on the forest floor. So we're still extracting and working together as partners with the M&R, Ferric, Tembec, and Nipissing University. And I hope I didn't miss anybody on that. From an operational perspective, this is the Kapuskasing trial. So here's a picture of a winter harvesting area. Kapuskasing, we typically have to harvest and move our wood out within about a 5-month window. Very little summer ground. So, simple setup. You saw a few pictures earlier. This is the equipment working at roadside. Again, sort of the overview. We kind of had to look at our practices when we did this trial. There's two ways to do it. You put it in the truck directly or you put it to the ground. Well, the guys had to figure out what does it take? What's the speed of efficiency between having the truck ready to go versus the grinder getting maximum productivity. So we played around quite a bit with what works and doesn't work through our trials. So we came up with some results. We did a study, as I said, with Ferric that has been shared with the Ferric members, and I think it's pretty broadly shared. I think there was some very good work. And this is just the two types of methods. You know, 56 tons an hour versus 75. So there's some efficiencies between the equipment of the grinder and the use of piling into a truck. So there's a trade-off between those two activities. And there's some risk of contaminants and a bunch of other things. But we try to work on practices and understanding fully the implication to cost. So some of the harvesting challenges, well, sorting at the stump, how to place the bunches, distinguish the bunches at night. We talked, I think Denis shared about his operating hours being extended. It gets difficult in the dark to be able to do this, but you pretty much have to get max operating hours. Well, water doesn't burn very well. Having a short season to be able to go in to complement existing harvesting time frame and extraction, you end up dealing with snow and ice. We actually had a bit of an ice storm, we'll call it, but we had freezing rain that covered a few of our piles to make an extra challenge during this trial. So how do you sort material? How do you pile it? Maximizing your truck loads, making sure you're completely efficient. So what did it tell us? Well, have the right equipment for the right ground, organize your harvesting and piling, and manage moisture. This one, I think, for the northeast area, huge potential in volume, but really challenging to figure out how and when you accumulate material. Because you have such a short season and you're going to deal with snow and more water than a typical harvesting area. Nipissing, well, we're still trying to figure things out here. We're still in the, I think, the trial report mid-stage, as Mark put it earlier. We are expecting to see the costs come in the $25 to $35 a ton. That is probably less than a 50-kilometer type haul. And that's really the difference from our other experience. As well, we're seeing a much better productivity in some of the areas based on the crowns of the tree. Well, I'd like to just talk about some of the overall challenges. And this really comes down to, understanding first, as I said, we've done a lot of work to make sure we know what's there, we understand the costs of it, but also bringing up any particular issues around it. And this one here is, I'll touch on it a little bit, because first, as any other business, you need to be productive, and you need to have a certain set amount of volume. You need to be able to say, what's the cost structure to get to that material, convert it efficiently, and move it efficiently. So there's certain, back to my point on economy of scale, this applies right down to a block level. You really need to have a productive land base and a productive, I guess I'll call it a harvesting strategy to allow you to be effective at getting the right cost structure at the end of the day. Moisture management, as I just mentioned in winter harvesting, it's a challenge that we have to find a way. Do we store trees or move all the material during the winter, or do we find another way to operate on the ground to access, during the full season of the year? And that's sort of an advantage when you look at the Nipissing area. You almost have year-round harvesting in the mixedwood forest. Next one, guidelines. Well, these are the rules. And I think we're challenging some of the rules and testing the rules to see what is achievable within the certain rule set. But you really have to come back to that first point. You need the volume to come out of the area. If your rules restrict you, you're limited on your results. And it's as simple as that. So you really want to be careful. I think there was some emphasis about clear cuts and about full extraction. Well, as you go down to that, selective harvest, you start to limit your opportunities. And it's really a question here I think we all have to work on together. You have to have a stable primary industry to ensure access to cost-effective material. You can't do it alone. With today's markets, as good as energy sounds right now, we are in the energy business as part of our spectrum, it's to actually take a tree off a forest and all the activities you have to do on your own just for that product won't be cost effective. And we're looking for the day it will be cost effective, and we'll be ready for that. But at today's time, it's something that you can't do solely on your own. So you need the other viable businesses to make sure you have the right volume coming off a forested area. The last point on this slide is, well, public perception that additional harvesting or forest utilization is not good for the environment. This is the environmental debate versus industrial debate. And I think, this is one that we all have to be fundamental stewards in a way. Wood is good. It's good. It regenerates itself. And I think a message I kind of like to leave with you, and we all should be promoters of, wood for green energy is great. And I think that's something here when we look at this volume spectrum again, primary with complementary businesses, in terms of where we go in the future, whether it be new technology or other, we all want to make sure that there's an economic stake from the tree to the end use, and that there is true value. So I'll close it with that.